All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all you magnificent melon heads of the world. Happy Monday, everybody. Today is March 31st, 2025. It's almost April. It's almost, Liberation Day? Is that what we're calling it? Are we calling it like Mission Accomplished Day? I don't know. Tariff Day is coming. Look, it's kind of messy out there this morning. We had a bloodbath in Japanese stocks overnight. The last time we had an event like that, U.S. stocks kind of went along for the ride. Look, Friday was a bloodbath in U.S. stocks as well. Maybe bloodbath is a strong word, but at least for half of the day, Friday, it was a bloodbath in U.S. stocks. So what's going on? Take a step back from this whole thing. The Nikkei index, the Nikkei 225, Japan's big index, sold off more than 4% last night. Big single-day decline. We haven't seen moves like this since August of last year. And you remember August of last year, there was just panic in markets. There was worry over the unwind of the yen carry trade. Now, my initial look at what happened in Japan last night tells me that's not what's going on here, or at least that's not the only thing that's going on here, because the USD JPY chart is kind of stable right now. It's stable. I use that term loosely. It's not in free fall like it was in August of 2024. So what else is going on and that could be driving this big crash in Japan? I mean, the headline in Bloomberg is saying tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. But you know what? The press has their Trump goggles on. No matter what, every story is going to be about tariffs just because. Possible that's contributing as well. You did have Japanese automakers sold off yesterday, so maybe tariffs is driving it. And then you've also got inflation concerns. And now we're getting back more towards that yen carry trade idea. There's an article in Bloomberg this morning about more than 4,000 food items are about to see their prices increase in Japan. Why are the prices increasing? A combination of raw materials, but mostly because labor costs are going up in Japan. Oh, remember that whole virtuous cycle of inflation that the Bank of Japan has been trying to create? They've been trying to create inflation on purpose, believe it or not. Well, they got it. Inflation in Japan rose over 4% in February, ticked down a little bit at the end of March, but it's still pretty high, higher than the rate of wage gains. And, well, prices for food are rising. And if inflation is getting out of control, which it really looks like it's starting to do in Japan, then the Japanese central bank is going to have to raise interest rates even further in order to fight that inflation. That could re-spark that collapse of the yen carry trade, and we would see Japanese stocks falling. So, take your pick. What's really driving this? It could be a combination of all of them. It could be one more so than the others. But the takeaway here, Japan stocks falling fast and U.S. stocks are along for the ride. All of the Mag 7 names are down this morning, but it's being led by Tesla in particular. Now, look, tech sold off Friday. The CoreWeave IPO was a flop. It wasn't an unmitigated disaster. I mean, the stock didn't crash 30% on opening day. It actually closed exactly at 40.00, like right where NVIDIA said they were going to anchor the IPO price. That's exactly where it closed at, as in like the NVIDIA buy algorithm kicked in a minute before close and bought the stock back up to $40 and not a freaking penny higher, and then shut down. And they're like, all right, great. It must be nice when your biggest supplier, who's also one of your biggest customers and is also one of your biggest shareholders, bails out your IPO. And then they're like, no, I don't know why people think this is a round tripping scheme, or that maybe CoreWeave is somehow in bed with NVIDIA and it's all been a scam just to prop up demand for NVIDIA stock. I don't know where people get that idea from. What a disaster the CoreWeave IPO was. Now, look, it was delayed. They didn't even start trading until like 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. And big tech was selling off the whole time it was delayed. But by the time 10 a.m. came around, everybody was expecting CoreWeave to start trading, and it just wasn't. And it kept getting delayed and delayed. It's almost like they were on the phone on Wall Street trying to figure out who's going to take one for a team and buy this crap, because we can't convince retail to buy the shares. And it wasn't until CoreWeave started trading that the sell-off in the NASDAQ abated. So it really looked like it was the delay of the IPO that was taking down tech stocks on Friday. That's resuming this morning. Now, Tesla, we got to talk about Tesla, guys. There was protests all over the country over the weekend. There was more events, more largely peaceful events overseas. Tesla's got real problems here. All of the Mag 7 have real problems, but Tesla in particular leading the way lower today, down more than 5% ahead of the opening bell. We've also got some merger and acquisition activity going on. Rocket Mortgage is buying Mr. Cooper. This story just breaking this morning. And I'm sure my friend Melody Wright's phone is just ringing off the hook right now, talking about what's going on in this deal. I'll be honest with you, I don't know the finer points of this. All I can tell you is Rocket is gobbling up market share, and they're broadening. They're moving into new markets. They just bought Redfin last month for about $1 billion in change. Now they're trying to buy Mr. Cooper, which is the largest mortgage servicer in the country. Rocket, the big non-bank, is getting even bigger and even non-bankier. Something's up in the mortgage market, guys. All the while this is going on, you've got that massive FHA fraud that's happening, and maybe the Trump administration unwinds that COVID-era bailout program, maybe not. But keep an eye on that deal. I suspect we'll be hearing more about that. News out of France, Marine Le Pen, who was the front runner and actually the favored candidate to win the French election, has just been banned from the French election. And you know the old saying, if you can't beat them, prosecute them. Look, they're saying she embezzled funds from the European Union, that her party was using European Union money to pay for their domestic agenda. Okay. Apparently everybody doesn't do that. I'm sure it was a crime. I'm sure they did it, and I'm sure everybody does it. They're prosecuting them. So congratulations, France. You're joining the ranks of Romania, Turkey, and even the United States in political prosecutions. That's great. The world continues sliding towards totalitarianism. We need higher standards for leadership, but this is nothing new. And you've got XAI is buying X. That's interesting. Some more self-dealing by our boy Elon there. I looked at this deal on Friday when I first heard about it. Initially, it sounded gross to me. Like I remember when Tesla bought Solar City, that just stunk to high heaven to me. How does one publicly traded company buy another publicly traded company when the CEO of both companies is the same guy? How do you act in the best interests of shareholders of both companies simultaneously? That just reeked of conflict of interest. Now, I initially got that same vibe from the XAI deal, but the more I thought about it, the XAI deal actually makes more sense. Neither is publicly traded, so you don't have that shareholder conflict of interest as much. At the same time, XAI is assuming X's debt, and they're buying X's data in exchange for that. So there's a lot of people are screaming because it's more Elon Musk self-dealing, and I initially had that same reaction. But to be honest with you, there's nothing outright illegal about it that I can see. It just kind of stinks a little bit. And last but not least, we got to talk about this one. The whole thing with presidential pardons of financial criminals. Late last week, Trevor Milton, the CEO and founder of Nikkei, was pardoned by President Trump. And at the same time, the story broke that Haley Welch, the Hawk Tuah girl, is not going to get prosecuted for the rug pull that she ran with Hawk Tuah coin. Twice. They rug pulled twice. And also the BitMEX founders are being pardoned. Look, guys, financial criminals, this crap has to stop, all right? Fraud and scams are so rampant right now. The lesson is clear here. You are on your own to avoid fraud. There is nobody looking out for you. Police will not prosecute them. Regulators are inept or outright complicit. But understand how much damage these people really do. When financial crimes happen, when these people steal hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars, think about the number of homes that are destroyed, the number of marriages that are ruined, retirements that are lost, kids who have to change schools and don't see their friends anymore because mom and dad split up because dad lost a bunch of money in a fraud and mom left him for it. And now the kids are all messed up and they're in therapy. The amount of human misery created by financial criminals is staggering. And it's on such a scale right now that it's driving the wealth gap in this country bigger. It is endemic in every facet of our financial system. The AI bubble is a perfect example of this. And prosecutions of financial criminals are so freaking rare. And even when we get them, the sentences are laughable. People who steal purses on the street get tighter sentences than guys who steal hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It's so few and far between. We can't be undoing prosecutions of financial criminals. Presidential pardons of these dirtbags has to freaking stop. has to stop. That is just disgusting that Trevor Milton was pardoned. Absolutely freaking disgusting. But why don't we shrink my big melon of a head and let's see what's going on in markets this morning. Right now, the S&P 500 is down 53 points, 0.93% lower ahead of the opening bell. Friday's sell-off is continuing this morning. The Dow, meanwhile, is down 260 points, 0.63% lower ahead of the open. And the NASDAQ leading the way lower here, 1.3%, down 249. Why don't we just make that an even 250 points in the red this morning? So the sell-off continues. Meanwhile, the U.S. dollar, I didn't get my chart ready here. The Dixie's a little bit lower this morning, off by about 14 basis points, but still above 104 at 104.12. Now, looking over at the bond market, man, I didn't get this chart ready yet either. I am all over the place this morning, guys. Sorry, I'm all verklempt because of the pardoning thing. All right, we've got yields are lower across the board here. The 30-year, 4.573, down almost 6 basis points. The 10-year is at 4.198, off by almost 6 basis points. The 2-year at 3.875, off 3.5 points. And the 1 month is unchanged at 4.308. Something worth keeping an eye on here, guys. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is currently sitting around 4.2%. But something I kind of looked at this morning, you see we had this downtrend through, looks like it started, about the beginning of January, middle of January through early March. And then we had something of a little bit of a bear flag pattern here. I don't know if you guys can see that. And now it looks like yields are breaking lower again. So in the short term, it looks like a little bit of a breakout from this pattern. I think we could be looking at yields sharply lower. And if this sell-off in tech stocks gains any steam, that could be the catalyst for that move. Looking over at the commodities board, we've got gold is higher again. Look at that big, beautiful spot gold price. I didn't even catch that this morning. $3,118, a new all-time high for gold. Congratulations to the stackers. It's higher by $34.75 or 1.1% higher. The flight to safety in gold continues, and yet silver is sitting it out. All right, I got to say it. Something stinks in the silver market, guys. This makes no freaking sense. $34.01 for silver. Still elevated historically, but we got gold making new highs day in and day out, and silver is down this morning while gold is up 1 point. Come on, guys. Something's going on over at the COMEX there. Something stinks. Down by 7 cents or 0.18% lower. I like the shiny. Silver, in my opinion, remains the most undervalued asset in the world. In a world where every other asset class across the board is grotesquely overvalued, silver remains the one deal to be had, in my opinion. Copper, meanwhile, 1.5% lower. Platinum is higher by 2.6%. Palladium's higher by 1.4%. And even crude is higher by a little bit here, 0.5% higher for crude oil. WTI futures for May at $69.77. We've been teasing that $70 level for a while. Now, keep in mind, guys, oil supply is set to increase in April. OPEC is largely expected to begin increasing the amount of oil production they've been holding back since COVID. They're starting to normalize. That's going to bring some new supply to market. But at the same time, we got this one this morning. Venezuela says the U.S. has revoked transnational oil and gas company licenses. So whatever is going on here, I'll be honest with you, geopolitically, I haven't really followed this that closely. But the U.S. is putting pressure on companies to not be exporting this Venezuelan crude. These sanctions are coming back. President Biden had somewhat walked back these sanctions when oil prices were going higher in the aftermath of the Ukraine invasion. And it looks like President Trump is now putting those sanctions back in place. So that's going to keep a little bit of oil off the market that may offset some of those increases in production that's coming from OPEC. Looking over at Bitcoin this morning, we've got $82,692 is priced on Coinbase. That's up a few bucks from yesterday's price. But I would add we lost money over the weekend in Bitcoin once again, and we have broken down below that 200-day moving average for a couple of days now. Kind of like your 10-year yield, guys. I'm seeing a similar pattern here where we had this decline, and then we had something of a bear flag pattern, and now it looks like we've broken out of that and are heading lower. The chart for Bitcoin has looked ugly for quite a while, and it still does. Meanwhile, our man, Mr. Saylor, over there at the company formerly known as MicroStrategy, he's at it again. Michael Saylor's strategy buys 22,048 Bitcoin worth $1.92 billion. This one's out from Watcher Guru this morning. I haven't been able to find a news article confirming this story. Watcher Guru's typically pretty good. They're not terrible about this, and this does fit the pattern of what Saylor has been doing. So look, Saylor's still pushing the infinite money glitch thing. Prepare for winter, guys. That's all I can tell you. That Bitcoin chart, it looks ugly right now. All right, now let's look at this one. This was the big story overnight here. This is the Nikkei 225, Japan's biggest stock market index, and just absolutely plummeting at the open overnight. And then it continued selling off. It closed just off the lows of the day, just barely. Down more than 4% in a single sitting. So what's going on in Japanese stocks here? Well, we've got this one in Kyoto News this morning. Nikkei stock index tumbles 4% on U.S. tariff concerns. I'm sure tariffs are contributing here. I'm not entirely convinced that tariffs is the only thing going on here. It's certainly not helping, but I just think the press has Trump goggles here once again. Tokyo stocks plunged on Monday, the final day of Japan's 2024 fiscal year, with the Nikkei index ending down 4% at a 7-month low amid selling triggered by concern over the adverse impact of U.S. tariffs on the Japanese economy. Now, interesting there, the final day of Japan's fiscal year, I'm wondering if maybe some people are selling stocks, trying to cover some debt, make the balance sheets look a little healthier on the last trading day of the year. It's possible that's contributing to this sell-off here. But the 225 issue Nikkei stock average slid 1,502 points or 4.05% on Friday. Its lowest closing since August 9th, which was just in the aftermath of that August 5th mayhem, and finishing down 11.8% from a year earlier. The broader topics index finished 98.5 points lower or 3.57%. All sectors lost ground on the top tier prime market, with decliners led by insurance, non-ferrous metals, oil, and coal product issues. Heavyweight technology stocks fell sharply following declines by their U.S. counterparts, while auto shares were sold off ahead of Trump's additional 25% tariffs on all vehicles made outside the United States, set to take effect on Thursday. Concern about the Japanese economy has started to smolder, considering the tariffs expected. Adverse impact on the auto industry, which is the country's key industry, said Kazuo Kamitani, strategist at investment content department Nomura Securities. Now, look, again, they're spending a lot of time on tariffs. They're talking a lot on tariffs. I couldn't help but notice here, though, that the one sector that they led, or the sector, they're saying they all lost ground, but the decliners was led by insurance. That's kind of a banky kind of thing. When you see insurance leading the decline, that tells me this may have something more to do with liquidity in the Japanese bond market. And maybe this does have something to do with the yen carry trade unwinding. Now, the one thing, though, the yen didn't really move that much yesterday. We did have a big wick on this candle. This is USD JPY. Right now, it's at 149.5. We did go as low as 148.7 last night. But we're not seeing, like, if we scroll back here to August 5th, the last time the Japanese stock market was freaking out, we're not seeing this massive decline in USD JPY, this big sudden strengthening of the yen. We saw a little bit of that all through here in beginning of January, pretty much the first quarter of the year. And we have been in something of a bear flag pattern for these last couple. There's that chart pattern again, that bear flag. We're seeing it in Bitcoin and we're seeing it in the 10-year treasury yield. That's interesting. So maybe we've got to break out of this and the continuation lower for the USD JPY chart. But right now, it doesn't look like panic in the yen carry trade that's driving this sell-off. I'm sure it's contributing, but it's not what we saw in August, at least not exactly. Now, another thing that could potentially be aggravating this is inflation expectations in Japan. Japan to see most price hikes for food products in 18 months. This one just hitting the tape this morning in Bloomberg. Japanese food and beverage companies will raise prices on more than 4,000 products starting Tuesday to offset higher costs for everything from raw materials to labor, according to a survey by Teikoku Databank. A total of 4,225 products will get price hikes, the most since October of 2023, Teikoku said on Monday, based on a survey of 195 food and beverage firms. Among products to see price increases are processed foods such as sausage, seasonings, beverages, including canned beer. Say it ain't so. They're not messing with the price of beer, are they? Don't go there, guys. Down that road, trouble lies. While the main factors behind the increase stem from rising costs of raw materials, the number of companies citing higher services costs that include labor and logistics also increased. So they're kind of mentioning here wage inflation contributing to food price inflation. Yeah, raw materials are going up also. But I would just refer you to this one, Japan's inflation rate, guys. The Bank of Japan has been playing with fire. They have been intentionally trying to get this chart higher with their insanely accommodative monetary policy. And, well, inflation is higher now. It went as high as 4% in January, came down a little bit in February to 3.7%. But if this keeps rising, then Japan is going to have to raise rates faster. And if they raise rates faster, it could expedite the unwind of the yen carry trade, causing more sell-off in Japanese and American stocks. And just to put this in perspective, if we look at a 10-year chart of inflation in Japan, I don't know what they're waiting for. You've got your inflation, BOJ. I mean, look, ever since 2022, inflation has been between 2 and 4%. So I don't know why they still have their rates at nothing other than the fact that they're stuck there. They can't get out of it. If they keep raising rates, they're going to keep crashing stocks. And, well, central banks don't want to crash stocks. All right, now let's talk about this one in Barron's this morning. Tesla stocks dives ahead of key delivery data. It's about more than Musk. I disagree with the premise of this headline here, that it's about more than Musk. I think it has nothing to do with Tesla vehicles. I think it has everything to do with Elon Musk. And I think the only reason Tesla stock is even this high to begin with is because of Elon Musk, which kind of illustrates the problem Tesla's board of directors is in. But we get delivery data. It's either today or tomorrow for Tesla. It's coming out later this week. The market is expecting, or Tesla is saying they want 410,000 vehicles. It's probably going to be something closer to 360,000. They've just changed the Model Y around. It wouldn't surprise me if they missed on their deliveries. But here's the reason what I really want to talk about with Tesla. The stock is down big this morning. Just look at some of these headlines of the last couple of days. Dozen Teslas torched outside of French dealership, authorities say. This is on March 3rd. Then we got another one a few days later. March 28th, police arrest Tesla firebombing suspect in Las Vegas. And then just this morning, fire at a Tesla dealership near Rome destroys 17 cars. Guys, this is not just in the United States. This is all over the world. It sure seems like there's a lot of largely peaceful Molotov cocktails being hurled around. A lot of largely peaceful arsons going on here. A lot of largely peaceful political terrorism happening all over the world. Can you imagine what the press would be saying if conservatives were out there firebombing Tesla dealerships and EV dealerships a few years ago? Can you just imagine the hysterical language that would be thrown around in the headlines? And yet they're just kind of ignoring this right now. Look, guys, this whole thing with driving EVs and the whole EV bubble, I mean, I took a lot of heat in 2021 and 2022 when I said EVs was a bubble. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but pretty much every EV company that went public via SPAC has now gone freaking bankrupt in the last year and a half, 2 years. So this bubble has burst. But it turns out it was never really about the climate, or at least the people that are blowing these things up right now don't seem too worried about the carbon footprint of burning the cars that they spent the last 20 years demanding that we build and demanding, and in some case legislatively forcing people to buy. Now they just want to burn them. It's almost like it was never about the climate at all, and it was really just obedience to this cult of wannabe Bolshevik BS that's now run rampant through the left. And, well, guys, the point is this is happening. And it's BS. It's going to keep happening. And Tesla's got bigger problems than a slight decline in sales. This is not just the EV bubble. I mean, Tesla had problems to begin with. The company trades at a forward PE of 129. But this isn't going away. This is going to get worse. Tesla's down another 6% this morning. It's down big year to date, $247. It's off by another $15 this morning. Look, I don't agree with what's going on. Obviously, you can tell the language I use to describe these little a-holes that are, because they don't like the politics, they decide they're just going to firebomb a dealership. And by the way, sooner or later, they're going to kill somebody. If they keep doing this, sooner or later they're going to burn down a building that they didn't know somebody was in, and they're going to murder someone. So they better get a handle on this crap before it spirals out of control. That being said, if you're a Tesla shareholder here, guys, you got to face reality. Tesla's sales are going to fall off a cliff. They're going to. When people are this pissed off, not only are people angry and not going to buy a car, people are not going to be buying these cars because they're afraid to buy these cars. I'm not saying they should be. I'm not saying you should cave into terrorists, but it's a fact, guys. If you drive one of these things, your car might spontaneously combust in your driveway. And investors should be realistic about that. Now, speaking of Mr. Musk here, we got Elon Musk is folding X into his AI ambitions. Look, Elon's X AI company bought Elon's X company. They bought it for $33 billion. It values the company at about $45 billion if you account the $12 billion of Twitter debt that is going over to XAI. You may recall Elon sold a lot of his Tesla stock. He bought X in 2022, was it that he bought X in 23? He borrowed about $13 billion to do that. He still had about $12 billion of that debt. That is now all being transferred over to XAI. XAI now owns Twitter. Elon, there's no cash changing hands. This is an all-stock deal. So what's really happening here? What's really going on with this trade? Twitter's debt that Elon took out when he took Twitter public is now being transferred to XAI. So the investors who bought seed funding rounds, bought shares in XAI during their seed rounds, they are now on the hook for Tesla's debt. Is that shady? A little bit. But at the same time, it's not like they're getting nothing for it because XAI is now have access to Twitter's user base and Twitter's data, which if you've used Grok or if you used any of these AI products, they probably already had that data anyway. Elon was giving it to them for free. But that's what they're getting in exchange for this deal is they're getting access to Twitter's data. And if you look at the valuation of companies like a Reddit, which is being valued based on the data value of its user base so that they could sell it to AI companies, Twitter's valuation here is actually pretty conservative. So the more I scrutinize this deal, it didn't stink as much as it did to me initially. Still, you've got Elon's company A buying Elon's company B, and it's self-dealing, and I'm sure there's something shady going on in there. But I don't expect any action from regulators. I can tell you, if he got away with the Tesla Solar City deal, he's definitely going to get away with this one. Because I don't really think there's that much to get away with here. All right. Last one of the day, or two more here. Rocket Mortgage to buy mortgage firm Mr. Cooper in a $9.4 billion deal. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't really know what to make of this. I think this is probably something I should bring Melody right on to talk about here. All I know is Mr. Cooper is huge. They are a massive non-bank. They're the biggest servicing company. Rocket Mortgage is huge. They're getting huger. They just bought Redfin, or they're trying to buy Redfin. I don't know if the regulators have cleared that. But this is a big deal here. $9.4 billion. Rocket is going to be a behemoth in the mortgage industry here. It's just developing this morning. So maybe we'll have more to say about this one in the future. And last but not least, Marine Le Pen barred from 2027 French presidency run. All right. Look, one of the reasons Trevor Milton was pardoned, that whole tirade I went on against President Trump for pardoning financial criminals. One of the reasons, and if you read the presidential pardon and the silly Truth Social posts about it, was he talked about how it was the same court, the Southern District of New York, the same prosecutors who went after him for his, let's admit it, guys, it was a bullshit political prosecution. All right. He paid a porn star to cover up an affair. Oh, this just in. Donald Trump is a womanizer who cheats on his wife. More news at 11. We've known this about him. All right. 34 felony counts off of that. Gag me with that BS. All right. But the reason why Trevor Milton is now being pardoned almost stems directly from that, because Trump specifically referenced the political prosecution in his pardon of Trevor Milton. And this is the problem with political prosecutions. You need to have high bars for political prosecutions because it is so dangerous, the politicization of the courts. Down this road, so many banana republics and tyrants and just collapses of civilization. And we just keep tap dancing through this minefield. They're doing it again in France this morning with Marine Le Pen. They're saying she embezzled European Union funds to further her domestic agenda. Oh, really? Do we prosecute people for that? So are we going to prosecute every NGO that takes money from U.S. aid and then uses it to pay protesters to show up outside of Tesla dealerships? Because isn't that embezzling money in furtherance of somebody's domestic agenda? Are we really going to prosecute all of this crap now? No, we're obviously not going to do that. We only seem to be prosecuting people of a certain persuasion. That's the problem. And look, Turkey, Romania, France, United States. This is happening all over the world right now. If you can't beat them, prosecute them. I'm sure what she did broke the law, and that's not the point. And no, leaders shouldn't be above the law. But this is a paradox. This is a gray area. There is no right answer to this question. When you prosecute your political opponents, you are tap dancing in a freaking minefield. You need to be careful. These people are not being careful. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm sure I pissed off everybody today. So, we'll see. Let's see if I can be called an extreme right winger and a libtard in the same comment section on the same day. we're equal opportunity offenders this morning. I just want to say thank you very much to the beekeeper who says tariffs was the reason, but is now the excuse. I do think tariffs is contributing to this sell-off. I do think there's a lot of uncertainty in the market around tariffs, especially the way he kind of like shoots from the hip, on again, off again, says one thing in one interview, a half hour later, or sometimes a half a minute later, totally contradicts himself. Businesses want certainty more than anything. They're definitely not getting that. So you're right. I do think tariffs was the reason. Now you're right. It's an excuse. Anything that goes wrong now, they're just going to say tariffs, especially for the next 2 weeks, because you've got Liberation Day is coming up. What a silly name for it. But why don't we just call it tax increase day? That's what it is. How about a little honesty in politics? Taxes are going up, guys. That's what tariffs are. You can argue maybe years from now or months from now, there'll be more factories and we'll onshore production and the country might eventually be healthier for it. That's a perfectly legitimate debate to be had. But in the short term, it's a tax increase on us. That's what it is in the short term. But I agree, it will be an excuse for anything that goes wrong for the next couple of weeks. Very astute observation, Mr. Beekeeper. Thank you, sir, for supporting the channel. And thank you, Alex L., for being a member for 13 months. He says, George Soros loves Tesla. I'm not so sure he loves Tesla anymore. I'm pretty sure if you look at all those protesters that were out front of Tesla dealerships, I'm pretty sure you're going to find a lot of them are on Georgie's payroll there, Alex. I'm sure he used to love Tesla right up until they hated him. But yeah, largely peaceful arson attacks going on around the world. But that's all. It's just as long as they're largely peaceful, I think it's totally cool. Unreal what's happening. Unreal. And by the way, here is a list of all the prominent Democrats who have come out and spoken out against the fire bombings of Tesla dealerships. That's all of them. Every single one. Yep. Okay. Moving on. What do we got from Alex L? Also shuffling the S at XAI. That's really what it is. They're moving debt around. And I think they're using our data as the excuse to do it. That's pretty. Thanks you, Alex. Appreciate the super chat and support of the channel. XAI is buying Twitter's data, and in exchange for Twitter's data, they are taking on all of Twitter's debt. That's pretty much what it is. No money changing hands, just shares moving around. And thank you, Mr. Alex, for gifting 10 Nobody Special Finance memberships. I appreciate that, sir, very much. Guys, if you got one of those Melonhead memberships, be sure and let Alex know you are grateful. Thank you very much, sir, for the support of the channel. T.A. Chapman says, time to hold on to our butts and save. Happy Monday, Jack. Look, guys, assets are probably going to be going on sale pretty soon here. That being said, assets have a long way to go. We're in this correction in the stock market. The S&P is down more than 10% now, I think, or we're right around that level. The NASDAQ, a little bit worse. That being said, we're back to the all-time highs from September of last year when we were still at ridiculously high bubble valuations. Not only are multiples contracting, but I think we're going to see these forward earnings estimates start to get revised lower, especially among the hyperscalers. If there's one thing the CoreWeave IPO told us, it's that the AI bubble is real. It really is a bubble. Investors have no appetite for this garbage. And since retail investors have no appetite for this garbage, that means the investment capital that is fueling this bubble is going to start drying up. Without that investment capital, all of the customers who are renting these GPUs can no longer afford to do so, which means we don't build out as many data centers, which means eventually NVIDIA's earnings start to reflect that reality. We are close to that happening now. The CoreWeave IPO proved it. Thank you very much, T.A. Chapman. I agree. It is a good time to save. And thank you as well for gifting 10 Nobody Special Finance memberships. 20 new Melonheads this morning. Well, welcome, guys. Guys, if say thank you to T.A. Chapman and Alex if you receive one of those memberships. Thanks again, T.A. Chapman. And thank you to Financial Maintenance, who says, thoughts on Alberta meeting with Trump? I don't know anything about that. Honestly, I'd love to weigh in here. I don't know what's going on there. Alberta. Why Alberta? Why one specific province? The tariffs is not a provincial issue. Maybe this has something to do with Doug Ford injecting himself into the tariff thing, right? Doug Ford was Ontario, right? Isn't that where? Sorry, guys. My political geography in Canada is pretty lax. It's possible the Alberta meeting has to do, I'm just going to, just on the fly here, you probably have some provincial official wants to draw a contrast between himself and Doug Ford. And while Ford is going to war with Trump, why? Just because maybe this guy in Alberta wants to draw a line between himself and Ford by being seen as cozying up to Trump. That's possible. Maybe some domestic politics at play there. But again, this is the first I've heard of this. So I'm going to have to defer on this one, Financial Maintenance. I appreciate the super chat, the support of the channel. Look, the trade war is going to be messy, guys. Trade wars are wars of economic destruction. They're wars of attrition. It is our pain that they are playing with. Prices are going to go up. They're going to go higher for us. I personally disagree with tariffs. I don't like tariffs. I think they just sends more money to the government at the expense of the people. That being said, I get what they're trying to do. And, you know, all these people who are like, oh, my God, tariffs are insane. Well, it's crazy to put tariffs on our allies. Understand, guys, all of our allies already have tariffs on us. So if it is insane for us to put reciprocal tariffs on our allies, why was it not insane for our allies to put those tariffs on us to begin with? How about no tariffs? Maybe we can all do that. Let's all get in a room together and let's all make this big sign that says no effing tariffs, and then everybody can sign it, and then everybody can live by what they sign. Let's do that. Oh, you don't want to do that? You don't want to do that? Then maybe you're full of shit when it comes to your commentary on tariffs. If you're not in favor of getting rid of all of them, then you're really not against tariffs, are you? Just throwing that one out there. A lot of hypocrisy flowing around in the political world these days. Why? Because Orange Man bad, I guess. I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the super chats and for the support of the channel. I appreciate that very much. Also, shout out to my magnanimous melonheads on Patreon and YouTube. Appreciate you guys very much. Links down below should you feel so inclined. Don't forget that like button and that subscribe button on the way out. If I offended you with my political commentary, feel free to let me know in the comments. This is not an echo chamber. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. Everybody, till next time, live small and dream big.